Welcome in, welcome in.
Welcome in. Welcome back to Do It For The Story. I'm Morgan.
And I'm Stacey. Thanks for joining us again another week. Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
You said before you cheers.
I couldn't help it. You may notice if you're watching this that our drinks have that coffee look because they change it up. We
Espresso Fredo,
Espresso
as they
Fredo.
call them in Greece. It's espresso, iced, with frothed milk.
we needed a little kick because we had to change up the time because JD had a regatta.
Well, we're tired. It's
And
not
we're
even so much about the
tired.
time. It's just we were at a bachelorette party all weekend
Yeah, all the above.
local in Annapolis, which was fun.
It was great.
But, you know, it was a late Friday night, a late Saturday night, and we were outside all day.
Because it was a Water Girls.
It was a Water Girls
bachelorette.
batch. So congrats to you, Zach and Leslie.
Yep.
But yeah, we were out yesterday
All day
on the
on
water.
the water,
We were
kayaking.
and awesome. We
my
kayaked to
God.
Davis's. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a great batch.
No shower happy hour.
No shower happy hour.
At Davis's, and then
Dinner
we
at
did dinner
Pearl.
which was très magnifique.
It was great.
as they say.
It was great. Great cocktails, great atmosphere, great food. The service was awesome. And then we went to Pusser's because Pusser's is closing in a couple. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like this fall. This is the
Somewhere.
last
This is the last
stint. If you know Annapolis, yeah, Pusser's on Eagle Alley.
Yeah,
And then we went to Chop
but
Tank.
the cool thing, remember, about being at Pusser's though, is because since it's the Writers Festival, this weekend actually just ended today, earlier this afternoon. The Writers Festival for music. So it's the writers that typically are behind all these huge
Yeah.
songs that you know. They're coming and performing either those songs or other songs, and it's really cool. But anyway,
It was
so
cool.
It's
Yeah,
all
so
over,
all of the
all over
live
town.
music that even the places that usually have live music in Annapolis, like they were the songwriters.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was cool. So if you were in town and you thought there seemed to be a lot of live music, which, by the way, I just have to say, every city's different, but that was always a thing in DC that I really felt like there wasn't. Yes, there are live music venues like 930 Club, and now you have Anthem, but just more of the small, like I can go into a bar at any night of the week and I can hear live music. There's more of that in Annapolis than there's in DC, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think just of like constantly. There's
Yeah.
always it's like just a part of the vibe.
Yeah, so it
even
was
if it's
cool,
just-
but it was
But
neat.
the reason I bring it up is because at Pusser's, the main stage was on City Dock, so we were watching and listening to the show, the main stage show, as our night was like rolling to starting to do the bar hop thing, and then went over to Chop Tank, and Stacey and I were tired towards the end and headed out from Chop Tank, and I think the rest of the crew hopefully continued on. Can't wait to get the recap of the rest of the evening. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
Great little
my
weekend.
first bachelorette in Annapolis, which is funny considering we're DMV girls. We did a lot of, we've done Dewey, we've done Rehoboth, we've done Deep Creek, we've done, you know, as far as like the local spots, obviously like DC one nights and things like that.
Yeah.
Actually, I've done Baltimore too, but of course, selfishly, it was amazing for us to be 5 minutes from everything
Yeah.
and sleep in your own bed.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
you know, be like, Joe, drop me off, pick me up, I'm ready.
Yeah.
But for those who haven't been, or even if you have, and you have to plan a bachelorette or a bachelor party, it's
Great
a
location.
great location. There's something.
Because you can also do like, yes, we did our kayaking, which we had through like our own little
Actually, the groom hooked it up. It was
our
awesome.
own little hookup. But even if you didn't have that, you could rent all the things.
Yeah.
Or you could get that tiki bar.
Oh, there's tons
boat
of
to, like,
there's a
take you
lot
out.
more
Like, there's a
options
million
now
things
to like
that you
have
can
like
do.
a event charter be on the water.
Still get the water vibe,
Yeah.
and also just do
Yeah.
the bar hopping and the cheap
And
food
if you
and drink.
have an event to plan, like a bachelorette, bachelor party, or even if you're like, I want to do a, romantic weekend or a little getaway, DM us. We'll hit you up with an itinerary.
Absolutely, I love to give the tips for the local town, the town, as they say.
Because if you listened to last week's episode, we're also going to tell you, and we did tell a lot of the single girls on The Bachelorette, come back. If you all thought Morgan was joking about the sailors go to the sailboat show, and we talked about how hot they were, let me tell you, there was a regatta yesterday.
There's a regatta. That's what I'm saying.
There was
'cause
a regatta
regatta.
yesterday. Because didn't JD sail?
Yes, he was in the regatta.
He was in the
all
regatta.
weekend. It was Worlds or something. I don't even know.
So there was talent, but
Yeah.
I'll be quick about it. Was just people start rolling in, and you can tell because there was groups of dudes, and women participated as well, but groups of dudes who were, whether they were single in a relationship, they were together without women. I said, open season. It's festival season.
Festival season. It's
Come on down.
Come on down.
But what else?
Anyway.
So I would say the Bachelorette was Friday through this morning.
Yeah.
Sunday. So Stacey participated Friday night, which was just like girls' night in, pizza games, fun times. And Morgan, you did not participate because you went to Bruce Springsteen.
No, I did not. I went to Bruce Springsteen.
How was that?
It was, I'm giggling because it was phenomenal. Like, I didn't know what to expect because JD, my husband, is a huge Springsteen fan. And it's like it's almost like a running joke between us because like it's his thing. I love it. I don't care. Like, he's always got the music on and whatever. And so he's been to many Springsteen concerts.
Is his dad or his parents Springsteen fans?
Oh, yeah. But also, it's like him and Jinx, it's like that. I don't know if it's the 82, 1982 kids, the older millennials, but like just that love of like the rock and roll and like the old school stuff. I think it's probably is because like the oldest. But anyway, always listening to the parents' music, all that stuff. And so, so he was just a fan and had been to many a concert. So he got him and I tickets, and then we basically a group of me and Joe and a group of his family, a group of our parents, just a bunch of people that I knew that were there. But anyway, so it was my first time going to the show, and I had I was supposed to hopefully ride down with JD, but I had to drop Angel in at DC so he could spend the weekend with
Auntie
Kiki and Little
Uncle
Diva,
Miles.
number one fan.
And
so I have to run into the city with Angel straight from school, and got up from my desk so fast, like yada yada yada. I could not. It was a whirlwind of an afternoon. Couldn't not get to Camden Yards in time if I came all the way back to Annapolis. Camden, the show was in Baltimore. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to drive straight there. So I was in the car for, then by myself once I've dropped Angel, I don't even know how long,
Yeah.
And so I had listened, been listening to music, and then I was like, you know what, I should be listening to Springsteen, even though I'm along for the ride. This is JD's thing. Like, I need to, it's before a concert. Like, let me tune in. And I just, I was like by myself. I was like, it's just not the vibe I'm feeling right now. I was like, I just like listening to this. So I had it on though, but then so I, because I guess I was in like car mode or something. Yeah. Like I just pressed podcast, which typically on my Spotify just takes you to like all the podcasts you usually listen to. Yeah. But I think it was because I was under Bruce Springsteen's profile. It took me to Bruce Springsteen's podcast with Obama.
Oh, so Bruce Springsteen has a podcast?
So during COVID, this was obvious. This was at the time when like you could, we had the tests and whatever, but like, and I say because they're together, Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen were at Bruce Springsteen's home and studio, like, in New Jersey. Okay. And they were doing, basically both of them were like, we ain't got nothing else to do. So they're friends, and they were interviewing each other, and they were just telling their like their life stories back and forth to each other.
So was it multiple episodes?
Yes.
Oh,
so it's a series.
Okay. When you had told me that, I thought it was one interview. I didn't know about that.
It's a series that they turned into.
I remember hearing it, but I totally forgot.
It's a series that they turned into a podcast, and I forgot. I need to look how many, but I'm on like episode 4, I think. So it's enough that, but they recorded enough. It was like one season. I don't know how many, 10 episodes, whatever. So I'm on the way down, and I'm listening to this because I'm like, oh, I actually am in the mood. That's what I was in the mood for. I'm by myself, for listening to a podcast or something. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I will take this in before I go to the show. So I start to listen. And I am like, oh my gosh, this is what this man has been talking about. Like, this is what because, there's like Fancy, you all have heard like about Fancy Haygood and my love before. I forget which episode of the pod that we talked about that. But there's certain, I think we all have certain artists that like.
I don't even know if we did. I didn't want to interrupt your thought.
Oh, we
but
didn't?
We're going to have to save. That's a good.
We'll save it for another time. But like Fancy Haygood, love him. Great story but anyway, I just really have resonated to his music but not just the music, like the literal storytelling.
Yeah,
the
right.
lyrics were like really like hit home for me during that time. And so I'm sitting there listening to Barack and Bruce interviewing each other, and what they're doing is describing, for Bruce Springsteen, he's describing his storytelling and the music, what it's all about, but it's really, they're just talking to each other. And then Bruce will be like, or like, for example, Barack Obama would be like, it's interesting that it makes complete sense. And I understand, born in the USA even more by hearing you say that. It's that kind of conversation,
Right.
And so I am completely now understanding, where Bruce Springsteen is coming from and like the stories that he's telling. And it's all about the connection that we all have with each other through our trying times, through our marginalization, through, basically like we may all look incredibly different. We may all be from a very different background, but we all can understand and connect to this moment in time. And it is throughout his entire history of his career, he's telling these stories through his songs of like how he's feeling, but which also is a direct reflection of how the world's feeling. And so he talks about blue collar workers. He talks about his dad who was schizophrenic and his mom having to be the primary breadwinner and being paycheck to paycheck, and talks about, being from a very small town that is, has huge racial issues, but he's also, has black friends and white friends in Vietnam, and they go on and on and on, Barack and Bruce, like going through this back and forth conversation. But what continues to come up is community and understanding and the similarities that we all have to each other. And like, literally no matter who you are in the world, like why and what why we're connected.
Right.
And it was like through him, he said, and he says this at one point in time, like, during the podcast is, there was just an innate like calling in me and a thing that I had to get out. And Barack says same. Like there was something in me that I needed to get out and release and tell the world. And it ended up for Barack being through, the presidency
right.
and that track and through
and service, right. Community. Cause that was the thing. He was a Barack Obama, former president.
Community organizer.
Yeah. Community organizer.
Yep.
And that's the big thing that Michelle Obama and Barack have talked, even when they had, I think it was like a Netflix series or something, community, the loss of community that we have,
Yes.
because we all are, which kind of ties into too when we talked about like social media is annoying for us, but you kind of naturally now sort of isolate. You think like, oh, I can just do this on my own. I don't need to reach out. And so even just those natural, but loss of community. So it's interesting because that's a big theme for the Obamas.
And loss of community. There's another, something else I was reading that was talking about also the loss of community because we're able to move so easily, so then all of a sudden you don't live with your
we're like
parents.
As humans, we are,
It's
I mean,
very
we're
much more
animal.
natural to stay in
Yeah,
a
we're
tribe.
more of a pack mentality. And now as people, the term it takes a village, people are less likely to have a village because you can go move.
And even, it just takes a lot more effort to find that out.
But anyway, so you were saying like Bruce Springsteen in the interviews with Obama, they're talking about their life stories and the connections and the uniqueness or the commonalities we all have like at our core.
Yep.
And the adversity that while they may be different, everybody kind of has their shit.
Exactly. And it was like, no matter who you are, which was so, and it's, as I'm driving to this show, I'm like, everything they were saying, I was like, oh, talked about that in this episode, talked about that in this episode. And it just was all like hitting home and it was like emotional. And then I'm at this concert And it was, and I have, we haven't, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but like just coming from a family that's very in love with music, we all were in band growing up. Our older sister, Lindsay, was just always obsessed with shows.
Well,
and
like you're saying, mom and dad we love music, like
Right.
a lot of stories,
Right.
our first Lindsay's first concert in utero was Tina Turner. And,
Right.
mom and dad always talk about that and the dates that they went
and
on.
we were
to
so
shows.
young when we went to our first family shows. all
Yeah,
that.
we go as it got harder to kind of coordinate all of our schedules when we were, college beyond the family vacations, as that became harder to do, we would always do family concerts. I mean, we did that before that time, but we've always gone to concerts with mom and dad.
Yeah, made it a consistent thing. And
Literally
so,
since Celine Dion and Michael Bolton was the first one.
yeah, no, exactly. And I was in fourth, so you were in
I was
like
in first grade.
Yeah. And so, I'm sitting there at this show and I'm taking it all in, and I am like, and oh, sorry. So my point is, before we got off on that tangent of that, I have seen an enormous amount of concerts, just an enormous amount.
And
Could never name
tons of genres
all across. I mean, everything from Prince to Jay-Z to Beyonce to
Tim McGraw
to the list goes on and on.
Yeah, to Britney.
And, yeah, I mean, all of it. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is beyond, like, this is an amazing show, but this is also an amazing experience. Like, I would put it literally, like, Beyonce has always been like this. I'm like, this is Bruce and Beyonce. Y'all are toe to toe for me.
Not to interrupt, I just
Yeah.
had to, because I asked, Stacey, I didn't go to the show. And because this actually, it was Bruce Springsteen, the concert had gotten canceled once, and then so there's opportunity to get more tickets, yada, yada. And so when JD was kind of hit up the family chat of like, hey, anybody want to go to this? There's tickets. I was already like at my quota for like a lot of summer plans.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm good, but thanks for like letting me know, like, don't really care about Bruce. Like, no offense, everybody. I like Bruce Springsteen, but it was, again, I was like, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. That would have been
so
me.
when I asked Morgan, how was the concert? And her response was just like she just said, Beyonce and Bruce Springsteen. I think my response was like, are you serious?
I'm telling you, I've traveled to Europe to go to like a festival, like, I'm not saying, I mean, I really want to emphasize, like, literally saw Prince. I've seen, and I was blown away.
And you've seen Rolling Stones.
Yada, yada.
And
We get the point.
Like I'm just saying that in terms of
Rolling
parent
Stones.
generation.
Same.
Because I said that to you. I was like, better than the Stones?
Yeah.
And you were like,
So mom was saying that she was like not sure if the Stones would beat it for her because she knew more of the music. I knew more Stones music. I knew just as much. Equal to equal Stones and equal to equal Bruce from JD playing it all the time.
so funny.
No, it was Bruce for me.
Okay.
So we could go down a whole list of all the amazing.
Again, I was getting clarity because I was like, what?
Because I highly recommend. So, but it was not only the incredible talent, because one, I'm thinking like Taylor Swift, this person not only is performing this and sings well, but they wrote all of this, and so it's very like, that's the, the thought that's in the back of your mind too. But it's just phenomenal, the performance and everything. But it's also, the storytelling was insane. It's between the songs, it's between the sets, it's during, it is the song. And you're looking around and you're seeing all ages, all able-bodied, unable, like, you're seeing every race, same-sex couples, I mean, all the ages. And I say that because you're in this, and even, my father-in-law leaned over and he was like, this is such a positive environment. Like, this is, you could feel it. It was palpable. And so in my mind, I'm also, I'm in Flair at this point because I had, and this ends up going to be part of the topic today, but I ended up, because I drove Angel into DC.
Yeah. What do you mean by in Flair?
Yeah. So just in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort, a lot of swelling from my psoriatic arthritis, which I've briefly mentioned before. And then, we'll talk about more today. But so I'm really uncomfortable. I'm tired. I just like the thing that I want to do most is just go from like stretching to get in a not hot, like a warm tub, to stretching again, to like taking a bunch of cannabis and like laying down. And like, you know, but I also am like, I'm going to show up for this concert. So I'm up so during the concert, I can't sit down for the first portion because I'm so uncomfortable. And we're in Camden Yards. So we're in like, you know, you're in seats.
And they're not that comfortable.
And they're not comfortable. So I was like, Joe, I'm going to go stand at the top. Luckily, where we were, you know, we were only like 5 rows from the very top of like, you know, the ballpark. So you could kind of know. And so there was a couple that was standing up from their seats, like up against the back wall. And so they were like, yeah, you can take our seats or whatever. So I'm standing there for a good chunk of the show until I felt comfortable. Then we go rejoin. But so through my head, and I bring that up because I'm thinking to myself, I'm always thinking of the disabled, but like now that I am disabled, but, you know, especially, you know, I'm feeling it it's coursing through my body. And I'm thinking to myself, the connectedness of us all, and, you know, the one marginalized community that we all can come in and out of, that we literally, one day you could be in it, the next day you could be out, the next day you could be in it, the next day you'd be out kind of vibes, is the disabled.
And go ahead.
And as I'm thinking of that, and I'm, you know, I'm like, that in itself is such a deep connection to all of us. And it just, my mind, you know, it can't, like I said, I'm always thinking of my disability, but especially in that moment, and especially in, you know, the 48 hours after, I'm just like, man, you know, especially to see all these people together and uniting, and thinking of all the things that can cause us to be disabled, and you know, we've talked about before in our yucca episode, and like the chemicals that are in food that are allowed here in the US that like aren't allowed in Europe because they make you sick, or, you know, how expensive it is to go to the hospital, or, you know, how pre-Obamacare, you know, if you had a disability, you were able to be denied, you know, insurance.
Well, and because I have to just say, even you just, I don't know if the word is casually, but just, it was casually, you mentioned, you know, being disabled, you know, now that I am disabled, at 2 parts. Is that something, maybe it's the first I was going to ask is, because you so easily said I have a disability, I don't think people that know you, people that don't know you, if I saw you walking down the street, you know, looking at you, I think a lot of people think disability means physical, and in the moment you have to see
or
it,
like a
you know,
severe
wheelchair,
mental disorder.
cane, I'm using,
you know?
yes. What constitutes a disability?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can literally say from like the Googled version, which is actually probably the best, that, and again, this is something that you have to vote on. This became, you know, the American Disability Act, ADA, that came into place because there were people fighting. You know, there was a time, like, I don't know what, that would be a thing that I didn't even Google before this episode. It was the 60s or 70s when that like even became an act, you know, and there's some incredible documentaries on like what it was like pre and who was fighting to like get these things passed. But so what constitutes a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act is the ADA defines disability as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. It can also include having a record of such an impairment or being degraded as having such an impairment.
Being regarded,
sorry. And so major life activities include caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, seeing, hearing, eating, sleeping, walking, standing, lifting, bending, speaking, breathing, learning, reading, concentrating, thinking, communicating, and working. And, you know, some like quick examples. I'm not going to go through all.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I was going to say highlight, because I think even that definition, my brain is still going to more of the physical, the obvious, you know, air quotes. But yeah, so can you like maybe give some examples of what would be?
Yeah, and again, I'm just like pulling these from, you know, the ADA website,
right?
But like AIDS, alcoholism, asthma, blindness, cancer, cerebral palsy, depression, diabetes, epilepsy, hearing impairments, heart disease, migraine headaches, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, paralysis, complications from pregnancy, thyroid gland disorders, tuberculosis, and loss of body parts. And, you know, I say like those things, I think immediately then, like you're saying, like, oh, I'm not thinking of, oh gosh, yeah, my friend who has asthma, or, oh yeah, myself who suffers from depression, or, oh,
I'm
yeah,
like,
God,
I read that and I'm like, my migraine headaches.
Yeah. Or like,
my thyroid disease.
oh God, I'm like, no, my friend with diabetes. Holy shit. Like,
Right. Just that list. I was doing the same thing. Like you were saying, I'm like kind of going through who do I know like that I love, you know, that falls into one of these categories.
Yeah. And the thing is nowadays, I feel like more and more every single, I swear to God, it's daily, certainly multiple times a week, certainly weekly, but I swear constantly hearing about, oh, just had a friend like literally last week say, oh, I have celiacs. I just got diagnosed. Another friend, oh, I have thyroid disease. I have Hashimoto's. Another friend, I have extreme migraine headaches. Oh, another friend, actually, I have PCOS, can't have a child naturally. I mean, like the list goes on and 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 on. It's constant.
No, it is constant.
Of people telling me they're sick.
Well, just yesterday, you know, even with the bachelorette, we only knew like a couple of the women there and there was like 20 of us almost. And then as conversations over the weekend spark up, I mean, same thing, like you were saying, how many people, things that they're dealing with, like health wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so anyway, I just asked that because I think it's a good reminder to like tee it up because people hear disability and they're thinking just like, you know, oh, you have to be physically handicapped with a wheelchair, you know, swing tag from your car.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I think what it is like, physically handicapped, visually physically handicapped, I think is what people think of because, you know, you think of our grandmother, our mom's mom, was physically handicapped literally her entire life, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which when she was diagnosed, because she was like a year or 2 years old, like a baby, was with, why am I forgetting the children's definition? Juvenile rheumatoid my arthritis. Exhaustion. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So, you know, even growing up with our grandmother, who literally, you know, we saw 4 times a week, you know, spent our entire lives with her, and someone else, you know, when she was older and you could see her moving, you know, super slowly, but when she was in her 50s, 60s, you know, when we were kids, someone looking at her walking down the street was not seeing that she was physically disabled because one, she would cover her legs with long skirts and long shorts and long pants because she didn't want people to see her knees knocking in on each other because of her extreme, you know, rheumatoid, and her area of most effectiveness was her knees. And so even like, and knowing,
and she didn't use a walker or a cane.
And didn't need
she
any
didn't
of that.
even have a handicap.
I shouldn't say didn't need any of it.
She didn't even have a handicap license plate or swing tag until she was like literally in her late 80s.
Right, because she really just was like, I don't want to be categorized that way. I don't want to use those things. Those are for, but you start to realize like, and even that, you know, I know part of that too is like it's society, right? Of how like we, and don't have time to go into all of that today, but how, you know, we view, and even because the ADA has only been in existence for, you know, however long, like all of those things are why, you know, those with disabilities aren't as seen or talked about or understood.
Right. So it was almost like you're saying at the time, her generation, it was like almost like at least
taboo.
I always interpret it taboo. And then it was, pride's not the right term. Maybe denial
and pride.
It was denial, and it was also like, oh, I'm not, you know. But that was
embarrassment.
Also embarrassment. But I think it, and again, we talk about like the positivity we grew up with. I think part of that was our grandmother looking at it as like, you know, I can overcome it. I'm not, and it's not.
Well, and that's a part of being disabled, that you have to have the mental strength to push forward.
Well,
and so if you continue to kind of accept in your mind, you're thinking, if I continue to just accept, you know, the easiest in quotes, like I am saying as the person with a disability, like, you've got to keep yourself, you have to push just to keep going.
Sure. And I think, because that's what I was going to ask you earlier when I asked, you know, what kind of constitutes as a disability, when you said, you know, now that I have a disability, I was going to ask you, was that difficult for you to identify as a person with a disability?
Still is. I just muster up the confidence every time I say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more, it's just uncomfortable. I don't know how else to say it. It's just uncomfortable. It's, I think there's a couple different reasons. It's one, it's triggering for your own, like, I have to say this out loud. Like,
And people are going to ask follow-up
people are going to ask
questions.
follow-ups, but also just like, I grieve every day over my old body. Like every single day.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah. But the last thing I want to end with, like, the reason I brought up my grandmother though, was because even seeing her from the moment I was born, seeing her constantly and knowing, because our mom being a nurse, so always talking to our grandmother about it as like a sounding board of like, this is happening to me now, like so our mom was always very aware of what was going on. It wasn't ever like it was shunned to talk about it. It was just that grandma always made it like it was easy for her to talk about it. Right.
Worry.
And so I say that because, until I became disabled, I did not understand like the depth of how fucking hard, like just so fucking hard it is to be disabled. Yeah.
So so
back to your question.
Yeah. Cause I want to take us to that, because people that are listening to this that know you are probably like, what is she talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Morgan. I played sports with Morgan. I went to college with her. Since when did she have a disability?
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk to us a little bit about like how this came about, your psoriatic arthritis?
Yeah, no, I can. And just the interesting thing, it's not the interesting thing. It's just, I can talk to you about it, but like, it's just also, every time I kind of really talk about it, whether it's like with Joe or with, my therapist, or go through like a weekend, like I had this weekend, you kind of just learn a little bit more about it. And like, so there's moments where I just literally pause and I'm like thinking and processing to myself. Cause like I said, it's just a grief. Grief is a journey, you know, it's never ending. But, so it started by, Angel was 6 months old. And so Angel was born at 14 days before lockdown, during COVID. So, in 2020. And,
which if you didn't listen to the birth story episode, go back and listen to kind of the start.
Yeah, exactly. So go back and listen to, the start of all that, because it's deeply connected. But so, this is 6 months later, and then we're in a place with COVID where we understood that like, we could, isolate, which obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, we had been very isolated. You could isolate 14 days, and then no symptoms. We were like, okay, we're going to isolate.
This is like August 2020, just to give people that timestamp.
It literally was Labor Day. It was Labor Day. It was going into Labor Day of 2020. And so we were going up to Cape Cod. And so it was a really long drive. It was like, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours of driving in the car. But the week before that, I start waking up with this shooting pain, like really intense, like severe shooting pain at my leg, which like when I had heard people say like sciatica and like that, nerve on, it was on that, like, that's how I kind of was like understanding it, of like relating the pain, it was on like basically the top of it was like on it felt like it was on my hip joint or something. And so I'd wake up in the morning and it would be so severe that I couldn't walk though too. It wasn't just the pain was severe. Like I couldn't get myself to like move without being like in just like severe pain and discomfort and feeling like really stiff. And simultaneously I had these, what I thought at the time, because, it was COVID and there wasn't much else to do. And I'm, home with
Angel,
that I'm taking these really long walks, and I'm thinking, it's summertime, maybe I'm gripping the stroller like too intensely. And I have these little blisters on my hands, like what I'm thinking of as like little tiny blisters. And then as this pain is getting more extreme, like all of a sudden I'm like this fucking rash on my hands. And then I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if it's poison ivy. Like I totally could, because we have poison ivy in our yard, you know, at
Right.
the edge or whatever. We have a dog. So I'm like, oh my God. But I'm like ignoring that because I've got this pain every morning. You know, now we're on the trip.
Right.
And I like, you know, I'm so uncomfortable getting out of the car. Then every morning I can barely move. I'm like in tears. I'm taking an insane amount of ibuprofen. Like I'm just like, just ODing on ibuprofen because I'm like, I don't care. Like, and we're talking about, so you understand what my body is. Like I was 42 weeks pregnant doing advanced extreme yoga. Like I have
Yeah,
always
you got
been an
your
athlete.
yoga teacher. I can't speak. You got your yoga teacher training certification when you were pregnant.
Yeah, literally, like because it was COVID, had to finish the certification remotely in like April, May or something. Like that's exactly, literally, yes, exactly what was happening. So, you know, was really confusing. And then, you know, we get back from the trip and, you know, I start to go to different doctors, yada, yada, yada. No one can figure it out. X amount of months later, you know, by this time, I'm in just wildly excruciating pain and I can't walk. In the morning, I try and get up out of bed to go to the bathroom. I can't make it to the bathroom. You know, I'm having accidents walking to the bathroom. If I do even get to the bathroom, and somehow get there, then I realize like, oh shit, Donahue, Joe, my husband, you know, his just muscle memory habit of putting the toothpaste to the left of his sink now puts the toothpaste in a place where I can't reach the toothpaste. Like I can't physically, the only thing I could do with my body is shuffle my feet really slow and tightly together and always be like along the wall, looking for the next wall, looking for the next like doorway to like keep me standing up. And but
Which
then
is-
to move side to side, I can't physically move side to side. I can't I can't stand straight and someone say like, you know, take your left foot to the left kind of thing. I can't do that. So I can't shuffle my body. So then I would literally have to do little tiny shuffles to like get over into a range of the toothpaste. And I'm saying all this to let you understand. I'm going from doing yoga moves people can't do without like that. I'm doing this pregnant. I'm doing moves people can't do when they are non-pregnant, able-bodied. And now I can't even get out of bed. I can't sit on a toilet. I can't brush my teeth. You know, stairs are like Mount Everest. Like I can't function. And
you have a 6-month-old baby.
I have a 6-month-old baby and I don't understand what's happening.
And you're breastfeeding.
And I'm breastfeeding. So now I'm now to breastfeed. All I do all day, I go from like doing all of these things to then physically, you know, doing all these things to then I can only lay on my back on the couch. And I have, you know, the doctors are giving me Percocets and I've, you know, the steroid thing and all this stuff. And like, you can only take so much of that before the, you know, and none of the painkillers will do anything. There's the pain so excruciating. The only thing I can do is, like the most extreme, and I don't, extreme is the wrong word. The strongest indica the dispensary could provide was the only thing that would give me any kind of relief with an insane amount of ibuprofen at the same time.
What were the doctors saying because you said this was like the first, let's call it first 2 doctor's appointments you went to. What are they asking? Are they thinking it's something? I mean, did you get any kind of, not an initial diagnosis, but was there a route where they were?
Truthfully, it's such a long, and I know that seems, and I'm saying this, it seems like an easy question.
Yeah.
But the easiest way to answer it is I set myself up for failure because I didn't have a general practitioner.
Why do you say that?
Because I went from only seeing a doctor when I needed something, you know, like a sinus infection, you know, my yearly physical for the gyno, to then being in a really extreme situation. So I'm thinking and only understanding the healthcare system to be well, if you have an extreme situation, you need the right specialist to fix your extreme situation. And you can only get to the specialist by like making all these appointments. It's not even about the referral.
Yeah, it's not. Like you're saying, it's about, because you got to get in there. It's a long list, a waiting list.
It's not that. It's if you are just trying to guess what is happening to you and you don't have a generalist practitioner that is directing you towards these are the order of things to check off, you're fucking running around with a chicken with your head cut off.
Well, yeah, but I just mean it's a long waiting list even to get a general practitioner. Like, I know when I moved to Annapolis, the first appointment I could get was 9 months out.
Sure, that too.
So if you're like, something's going on and I need to get to someone to help guide me.
Right. You're already behind. And
yeah, so if you're waiting when something's wrong. Yeah.
So it was that, and it was just, it was confusing, and there wasn't someone just guiding me. Because I am jumping to these because that's what specialists do. They understand, they specialize in an area. A generalist knows a little bit about everything. So it ended up being an ER doctor, an urgent care ER doctor that gave me the first, and I had done a bunch of Googling, but he was like, yeah, this is, I think this is psoriatic arthritis. And that was happening actually, I shouldn't say that. He was the first person that was confidently saying that. My physical therapist was, because initially they were like, oh, we think you have like some kind of hip dysplasia from childbirth that's like been delayed. And so my physical therapist, saw on my hands, what's that rash? Dude, I wonder if you have psoriatic arthritis. But even that, it was like an in-passing thing, and I felt like I couldn't control it. I mean, you're in extreme pain. You can't think.
Yeah, you're also just not... And you have a baby.
And, it could be a million things. So anyway, this urgent care moment, this doctor says this, tells me to go see this rheumatologist. Rheumatologist is like, it's either ankylosing spondylitis or it's psoriatic arthritis. Either way, we're going to treat you the same way. Keep seeing the derm, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to tell you that story now because it would take me 3 episodes and a series to actually tell you the million things. Like, it was an insane amount of things. Everything from missing teeth to, like, just to give you to a bald head to, like, not enough time. Couldn't tell you. No. So back to this conversation. I'm then finally diagnosed. And that was, oh man, I wonder when that was. Maybe in November. It felt like it was Thanksgiving time. Yes, it was, because I remember that's when I was on a different biologic. Was I just started taking it. Yeah, was right around Thanksgiving. And so, that's from Labor Day to Thanksgiving. I'm laying on my back. I'm in excruciating pain. I'm using a walker. I can't get around. My life has changed forever. I'll never forget the moment that, it's COVID time. So there were a few people that could come to visit and see us that I felt comfortable.
And Mimi was living, our sister.
Yeah. Mimi was
living with you.
And Mimi had moved in because it was COVID times to help take care of Angel.
Yeah.
She was nannying. And thank God for that. Thank God for Mimi saying yes to, I will live with you and help you during this time for Angel, because
it real MVP, Mimi.
It turned into Mimi taking care of me and Angel at the same time. Mm-hmm. She was quickly became the family nurse. And I know I'll never forget it. I assume she will never either, but like her literally having to physically bathe me.
Mm. Yeah. Mimi's in nursing school right now, and it's a career path that we know she was destined to be in.
And the thing was, it wasn't just that she did it, and she did it with such grace. Like, it felt like, how mom would be.
Oh, that's what I mean. She just has a natural bedside nurturing manner where
because our mom's an ER nurse.
Sorry, I'm realizing the tissues I put over there.
It's fine. Because our mom's an ER nurse, and
you couldn't have mom.
She's an exceptional one, and there's few people that have that same level and ability of bedside manner, and then plus, it's our mom, right? So
like you were saying, it was COVID,
So
mom was taking care of our grandmother, right. Her mom, who was in her final year
end
of life.
And so someone who's severely disabled at their end of life, you know, that's a lot of work. And it was also a lot of, it was scary
We
because
couldn't have anybody, at that point, we couldn't have grandma getting COVID.
No.
We couldn't have you getting COVID.
We couldn't have Angel getting COVID.
Like we said,
we were all very
Mimi
vulnerable.
moves in with you prior to you getting sick to help just be a nanny to help take care of you because you had no postpartum help.
No, and it was divine intervention too, because Mimi moved in the day before we went on. That was when she was going to start. We were like, Mimi, you can start when we go on this trip. It'll be super fun. You know, you'll at least get to go to like, you know, we'll do something fun as like the beginning of your time with us.
I was thinking she was with you guys.
So she moved in when it all started. You know, so it was like, it was divine intervention that she was even there. But I go back to that saying, you know, it wasn't just that, it was my baby sister having to physically bathe me, but it was just the fact that like, I remember bathing her and like, you know, all of a sudden she's taking care of me. And, you know, it's a real, you know, it's a really humbling experience when you can't wipe your own ass, you know? And you can't figure out how to sit on the toilet. And so I remember, like, that's a moment I remember is Mimi bathing me. And another moment is I remember you being like, okay, I'm coming. I can't wait any longer. Like, you know, I'm like, Mimi, I don't have, you know, I can come. I'm going to come visit. And so you were taking me to acupuncture because at this point I'm like so desperate. I'm like, I will do anything to feel better. Like,
it was a day in particular too, like where we were always communicating as sisters and with JD and, you know, with Mimi knowing that she was here and knowing that mom was trying to help because mom had so much on her plate too with grandma. And this day in particular, it was a bad one. And I think it was Lindsay actually who had talked to Mimi and she had then, you know, called me or had said like, hey, have you talked to Mimi today or something? And I was like, what's going on? And it was a day mobility was really tough for you. And Lindsay was like, I said, I mean, I can go. And so it was a weekday. And of course we're all remote. I didn't care about taking off work. And I was like, yeah, I can be down there. Definitely. You know, like Joe and I were by ourselves anyway. We were kind of like the most sterile non-COVID exposure. But yeah, I remember calling Mimi and being like, what's going on? Her telling me, I'm like, okay. Lindsay's like, I need you to go. I need you to be there. And she was very, very concerned that day. Yeah. Anyway, I just say that because it wasn't me being like, obviously I would have been there, but there were a lot of those days. And it was also a day where, like you're saying, it was just like, there was more support needed. More of the village.
And so,
sorry, go ahead. So I took you to acupuncture.
Because I didn't know that side of it, but I knew that was happening, but I didn't, you know what I mean? You're not paying attention to that because obviously you're not on the chain, but like just knowing, you know, whether it's your sisters or your community, your village, you know, the people that are on the text chain about you and helping you, you know, and looking out for you. The non-Diet Coke friends, you can go ahead and go back and listen to that one too. I will plug it. And because Diet Coke friends, that's, you know, you have to, yes, siblings, you're born with them, but you got to choose to make them your friends. We have worked you know, people are like, you're so lucky they see us, you know, even strangers realizing like, oh, I met you for the first time and realizing that we're close. You know, all of our sisters.
Yeah, we learned lessons.
You're so lucky I always wanted a sister. Like, for sure. We are very, you know, there's nothing that we didn't choose each other.
Well, we saw family examples of families that were close to us, that were like blood of our parents' friends.
Totally.
And we were like, we want to be like that. We never want to be the family like so many boomer dynamics
families
where a sibling doesn't talk to each other for a while or they don't come home.
Well, and also that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like we consciously were like, we are not going to be that.
We consciously said that as the sisters. But I didn't know this until our friend Andy had told me this recently, that he had asked mom, like, how did you do it? And he was like, with them becoming this way, like I think as siblings or something. And she goes, oh, I fully decided you will be best friends. And like, I was going to set that up and raise them like that and think like that, you know, when I'm responding to one complaining about the other and all that shit. And so anyway, so I say all that because I remember this one moment that I remember was Mimi bathing me. And there was a lot of moments I remember, but when you're, it's like postpartum, when you're just like getting through it, how do you end up having a second kid? Well, because your brain naturally forgets. You're like the suppressing that, like the horrible late nights and all that, because that, so you can naturally have another kid. Same thing with like survival. Like you block that out so you can survive, And so, so distinct memory. Other one is that day when, you are driving me to acupuncture. And again, I'm like super desperate. I'll do anything. Like if someone I always tell people this, like, because now I have all these dietary restrictions, no gluten, no dairy, no tomatoes. And then I just try and eat as clean as possible, like all of the things, no alcohol. And, when people are like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? Or just like, even I think just so folks understand, even if they don't say anything to me about it, like when you're in that kind of pain, physically or mentally, if someone said, eat, all you can eat is bananas every day, all day for the rest of your life, I'd be like, fucking cool, man. That is easy as shit. Mm-hmm. Eat liver all day, every day for the rest of your life. Of course I will do that. That's no big deal in comparison to not being able to move, not being able to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would fucking do that. So, it's one of those days where I'm like, okay, one of the other things I'm incorporating into my routine is acupuncture, because at least I'm getting some mental relief because I'm in the dark room and, it's someone that's catering to me that I'm paying that isn't my family, because I'm, it's
Right.
COVID times and I'm feeling taxing about that.
Plus, at this point, you're like you said, you're trying anything.
Anything. So you're taking me to acupuncture, and I look at you and I say, the thing is, I'm sure you had just said, like, how are you doing? And I was like, the thing is, I love Angel so much, but I hate my life right now because everyone kept telling me it was that, like, it was because of that. Like, it was because you had a kid, your hips effed up, or it's because you had a kid that your hormones aren't crazy, or it's because, whatever the reason was, like, that's what people kept connecting it to. And so that's what I meant in that moment. I'm not saying I wouldn't go back and have Angel, but like now I can't even pick him up.
Yeah.
Like every day, literally think about it.
You literally couldn't feed him. That was what was the most heartbreaking. I remember seeing, because we all weren't there, the family, like you're saying, because it was COVID, seeing you for the first time, literally laying on your back to like feed your baby. And then it was also during that time, because you were in pain and it had been quarantined and you weren't working at the time. So you weren't pumping because you didn't have anywhere to go. And so he couldn't take a bottle. And I remember there was a conversation, again, we talk about the text chain, where JD, Mimi, and I were talking about, like, maybe we should try to get her, or they were saying maybe we should try to get her pumping so then we can help with, taking the baby more, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but right now, that's all she can do.
That's all I can do. That was my only
That's her
connection
bonding. I'm like, don't bring it up, because they were also worried that it was taking too much nutrients. You were also really thin. Not because you were just in that much pain. You're not going to eat. You couldn't move. Like everybody has to tell you. So anyway,
my muscle was gone. I still, talk about grief, like, and talk about, man, like, the thing that I think again, it's like, what can you, what Stacey was, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but it makes sense because when prepping for this episode, Stacey was like, well, what do you want people to take away? And I hadn't even thought of this, but be kind to your body. I think back to when, I was 25 and, everybody tells you have to be perfect. You have to be fit and you have to be thin and you have to be muscular and you have to be you have to have a huge ass and you have to have huge tits and your hair needs to look great and you need to have makeup on.
And it matters. It all matters. And if you don't look that way, and if you don't try to look that way, you're not worthy. You're not enough. You don't even care about yourself if you're not worried about those things. And, you know, I go back and I think about the times that I looked in the mirror and I was so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And I look back now in this body, in my disabled 40-year-old mom postpartum body. And I think that 25-year-old body was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's going to make me emotional because it's just like you say that until, especially we touched on it. And I think the lessons from our 20s episode, I think we even said that, like, don't look so hard at yourself in the mirror, meaning, you know, don't pick apart yourself because it's like you're saying you never know. And there's also that if you are so lucky to have made it that far, 25 or wherever in your life where you have an able body and you have good health, you do have that, you know, you're naive and thinking I'm invincible, you know, and it's not even at 25. I think it's anybody that hasn't, I shouldn't say anybody, but if you're not close to someone that you're seeing it.
If you're not physically disabled or mentally disabled or you're not a caregiver, like, I just feel like it's really fucking hard to understand. But what I can say is, and where this like whole episode came from was like, just like Bruce Springsteen says, it's like, I promise you, you can understand what it feels like though to be disabled. And I can speak to the physical and the mental, because I definitely now know what it feels like to be severely depressed. Because when you can't walk and all the things, you know, you'll get there pretty quick. And
But
go ahead, because
no, I was just going to say, like you mentioned, it's that there's so. It's interesting because, of course, you see now maybe not even necessarily theme, but tie-ins, right, of how our brains think from the different episodes. And like we just said, with lessons from our 20s and talking about, like, man, if I could go back, it's not even about going back. It's just if I could tell my younger self or tell myself now, you know, be kind. It's like I've even said with my PCOS, like, I don't know, if you really zoom in today, if I showed myself without makeup on, I told Morgan yesterday, like, I'm having a really breakout day and I can't figure it out. You know, my period just ended. This is when my skin is supposed to be good, quote. But now I just don't care. I mean, I have a husband who tells me I'm beautiful all the time. I have my sisters who always lift me up. I'm like, even the bachelorette, I'm not there solo looking for guys. I'm not there solo without a sister. So it always, community. Just like we talked about in Diet Coke. And I think you made the comment, Morgan, in the Diet Coke episode about, you know, those having friends when you go through life tough moments, and you use the example of divorce as just it could happen to you, because not everybody, but people that are really, it's anything. You don't know what can happen. And so it's not just about who's going to be there for you, like losing people. It's who's going to be there for you. None of us ever thought something like COVID would be something we experienced.
I certainly never thought I was going to need a walker.
Right.
I never thought that.
But I'm saying even in that time, even in those COVID times, you're like, I have my baby, I have my husband, and then I have my sister Mimi who's moving in to help me. But even that, you needed more.
Yeah. Needed more support. And even though they weren't physically able to be there, I needed to know that Joe was supported. I needed to know that Mimi was supported.
Right.
Because I already felt insanely guilty. That's the other thing of lessons learned. You know, again, another one that now that I'm really therapeutically talking this out of things that we didn't talk about prepping was tell those that are disabled around you, do not feel bad. Ask it for help over and over and over and over, because I love you so much. I want you to ask me for help. And don't be worried if you said please or thank you or whatever. Yes, we come from that house of where you always say please and you always say thank you. But when understand my disabled friend, husband, whoever, the person in your life that you love, understand. And now I'm talking to the other disabled people out there. Yes, try and remember the please and the thank yous when you can, but believe you fucking me, if that was my significant other, if that was my sister, best friend, whatever, I wouldn't be worried about them saying please and thank you when I am just so sorry that you're in the pain that you're in. And that was the thing that I would always say as well to Joe. I would say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry because I feel so guilty making you go through this, because I personally was like, I think I'm in the easier seat being in this much pain. When you're watching me and you can't do anything about it, like I would think about that. I would think if he was laying there and I had no idea what to do, I would, it's just like with your child. You're like, I would trade place with you in a second. This sucks. I can't help you. I can't solve it. And so it's just all of that, take the guilt away from them, lift them up. But I know I'm kind of jumping around.
Can I ask you, and I'll a couple things. One, and again, this is more on my mind too, because last week we did release the Diet Coke episode, which is, if you didn't listen to it, when we say the term Diet Coke friend, meaning just someone who's not the real thing, who's not showing up for you, not reciprocating the type of friend that you give out, like not a loyal friend, right? Go listen to the episode if you need more details.
Yeah.
When you were going through this, and again, it's COVID, so obviously the people that maybe would have shown up on your doorstep can't. Literally.
Right.
But it was COVID, so we all got creative with other ways to reach out and connect. Did it make you reevaluate some of your friendships, or did it make you see people for who you didn't think they were?
There's
negative or positive,
No, and before I'll caveat it with, because I know that there are some of my friends that are going to be like, I still don't fully understand everything you went through, because I just don't see them as often, and it is really triggering and traumatizing for me to talk about. So it's not.
And you weren't going to be on a text chain like, guys, this is what I'm going through right now.
No, and I couldn't, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I remember someone seeing some influencer saying and referencing it to actually in getting something done. It was she was referencing her small business and saying how understand that some things are happening in the quiet and in the darkness and in the alone time. I'm not putting everything out there for the world to see. Understand there can be a lot happening behind the scenes. You don't need to share everything with everybody all the time. And she was, saying it from that, I got something cooking back here and ideas and work and whatever, but it's also that same. And I have no interest in anyone fully in updating anybody that isn't my deep community, because I ain't got time for that.
Right.
I can barely fucking function. I am sitting here so out of my mind on, before all of a sudden I go from, not taking any medication to taking, Joe, even, this all happened to me in 2020. This was this year that he was looking through one of my old medicine baskets and had a breakdown, just seeing a huge basket of medication. And, and I looked down at my bracelet of my friend who died of colon cancer, and just how quickly that happened for her. And she got sick after I got sick and is dead now, she's fucking dead. And it's just that thing, you never know what's going to happen. And I say all this and I bring all this up, and I started it off with Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen, an unlikely friendship. People from two very different backgrounds that have felt very similar pain, and understand that other people feel very similar pain, even though they have a completely different reason to feel that pain. And I say that because, in this time of elections, and I think that's what gets me so
Can I tee you up for this? Just because, this is where I was going next. Is obviously I'm your sister. We talk all the time. I think people that listen to this probably know how we lean politically.
Yeah.
Come on. Now that we are in an election season, You know, we got through 4 years already post-COVID. You went through one election since being diagnosed and going through all this. Now that we're in another very important election season, and being someone that does have a disability, or living with a disability, whatever, how you want to say it, how has that changed your perspective in what matters to you, but also what you think people are so... How has it changed your thoughts and what matters to you with the election? I'll ask you that and then I'll follow it up. Because I say that because I think we talked about in the 20s episode, it was interesting because I got a couple people commenting to me about that. Like, wow, that's so true. I forgot that when we, you know, millennials, that prior to Obamacare, when you graduated from college, you couldn't be on your parents' health insurance. And I think you made the comment about like, that's the stuff that, you know, the politicians need to be talking about, you know, the Harris Wells campaign needs to be talking about to the younger generation. But now, Flash, so we millennials remember that of what it's like to not have health insurance. But you were always a healthy person prior. So that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And I think just the first thing that I want to say is I can't answer that question without saying I am just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think about being sick every day. I'm scared of getting more sick. I'm scared my medication will stop working. I'm scared the medication that I take, which can, I don't know, you know, legally how they would say it. It's like causes cancer, or it can make it easier for you to get cancer, or like
Connected to,
let's put it this way. I'm not allowed to donate blood ever again, you know? Certainly not while I'm on a biologic, and I don't know if you ever can after that, you know? Like, it's changing my DNA every day for me to live a life that I personally find like the best way to live, which is being mobile. So I take this really intense medication to be able to move. And when I think about that medication, like, I'm thankful for modern science, but yet I'm also really mad at modern science.
Why?
Because money is like what drives this country, and it's more important for the pharmaceutical industry to make money than it is for them to cure people. And like, I'm not saying that there aren't people fighting, you know. I go to Johns Hopkins and I like just experience such a wealth of like beautiful care and help, you know, through them and these doctors that have like got me walking again. But I also know that the insurance part of their job is awful.
Yeah.
And the frustration for them with the cost of the drugs is awful. And all these things, you know, the American, like we started this conversation off with ADA and like the Disabilities Act and like those things, like Obamacare and the guarantee of having health insurance or not being denied because I have psoriatic arthritis now.
That was...
If I get a new job, they can't deny me. You know, like those are the things that you need to understand. They've overturned Roe v. Wade. They could take back the ADA. So I'm talking to you, mom, that votes for Trump, that has an autistic kid. They don't have to make sure that your child is allowed to get a job. If these things are rolled back, if these laws that we have are rolled back, and the way that we know, that us millennials know that those that are disabled are treated, that could change. We're already seeing healthcare change because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And so that's what gets me mad. You know, when I see people that are like, I'm interested in being fiscally conservative, I get that too. I don't like paying taxes. I don't get off
Yeah, I
on
like money.
giving my money away. I like nice things. It's not even like I like nice things. Like I want a Gucci bag. I like not having to stress about money. Mm-hmm. I like being able to be like, yeah, let me give the $200 to somebody in my community that I know needs it today. I love all
Right.
those things. I know
Right.
a lot of people do. I don't think most people wake up in the morning being like, I want to do everything I can to become a billionaire so I can hoard money and never help anyone. I don't think that's the goal.
Right.
But I think when people don't think about what politics really means, there's a mask. There's for me a cloud that capitalism and, you know, wants and marketing, you know, they want to put over our vote of it's about money and it's about
Right.
race and it's about this and that. No, it's
They
about our
don't want
basic-
us to get into
they
the
don't want us to get
details.
into the details, because if we got into the details, you would realize it has nothing to do. When you're disabled, it doesn't matter if you're black. When you're disabled, it doesn't matter if you're poor. It matters. It matters. I'll tell you this. It doesn't matter if you see where I'm going. Wealthy. It impacts everybody the same.
Yeah, you're at
except
an
for
advantage if you have money.
Exactly.
But you could have all the money in the world,
And if you can't
and if
fix
you
it,
have,
you can't fix
if
it.
you get breast cancer tomorrow,
Doesn't mean that you're going to
it's
survive.
not like you get the drug that cures it, because there's not one.
And now I will say, I've had, you know, a friend who was low income die of breast cancer because she wasn't able to get the best treatment. But I've also had people in my life that have died that had plenty of access
Had
to
the
the best
best
treatment,
treatment.
because it's just, if you're sick, you're sick.
You're sick.
And
Yeah, it's
so
not going. The healthcare
it's-
system doesn't change for you based
No.
on your. You know,
No.
it's like you're saying certain degrees,
No.
but it's not like we're holding back the cure
So,
for cancer
yeah,
drug.
No, to me, it's, you know, the people that they want you to get distracted by the noise rather than understanding that it's not, you know, I just get so frustrated when it comes to, on the ballot for me, healthcare and gun violence. Like, to me, those two things are hand in hand, right? Because gun violence is now a health epidemic.
Yeah, it's the leading cause of death for children.
For children.
Under the age of, it's like definitely children, so 18 under, but I think it's even skews younger.
Yeah. So it's yes, it does. And so,
So people that
But
want,
I want-
anyway, I'll pause. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go into that.
no, don't go into it. But what I want folks to understand from that is, I was in high school when Columbine happened. I remember the trenchcoat mafia, whole thing of the trenchcoat mafia kids were the ones that committed, you know, the murders of all those kids in Columbine.
Were you in high school?
Yes.
I think we were younger than that.
No, I'm pretty positive I was in high school. We'll go back and Google it, but I'm pretty positive I was a freshman.
Okay.
And
That could be right. Then if I was like,
yeah, and the trench, because I remember the trench coat, the kids that were into goth walking around school and thinking, like literally thinking, I wonder how they feel. You know, and I'm saying that because now, when it comes to voting in the ballot, now I send my child to school and gun violence is worse. Now I'm disabled and my grandmother's passed. Like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
right. Can I ask just one? Do you know how much your biologic would cost if you didn't have health insurance? And the biologic is an
It's
injection, right? You take every month.
Yeah. I mean, I've like blocked it out, but it's something insane. Like, it's, I don't know, I need like $15,000 or something. I mean, it's something wild.
Like a month?
A year. Like
But
15
so
to
like
20 a year.
so
or
like
something.
I was gonna say, so like each injection a month, if you didn't have health insurance, you would need probably an out of pocket $1,000.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can go back and fact check
And I
it,
only
Google it,
and I
but
would only
it's
say
a shit ton of money.
just for the one, like you said, it's not like you're only taking one thing.
No, it's right as it stands now. It's one shot every month for the rest of my life, in hopes that there's a cure, in hopes that I can somehow get it into remission.
right. Okay. And I only say that too because I think, like you said, jobs change. We are millennials. Our parents, you know, it depends on what career you're in. You know, if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, you know, I shouldn't even say nurse. More so if you're a teacher, if you work for government, if you're in a career where you're like, this is the only place I'm going to work for the next 30 years, which is it's pretty rare for our generation. You know, changing jobs and getting new health care happens, at least in my experience, in my
Oh.
career, every 2 to 3 years, I've gotten a new job.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, so you got a new job, or the company goes under, whatever may happen, your husband, your wife gets a new job, the health insurance changes. So like you're saying, now, if we didn't, I just want to reiterate that for people, because I really do think people forget about it, or at least people our age. And the only reason why in my house I don't is my husband does have a pre-existing condition from childhood. So he, as a child, remembers what it's like. His parents, my in-laws, know what it's like to be fighting with insurance companies and to have a great doctor, and then you get dropped.
Get dropped.
And without... Doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do.
Pre-existing
so I
condition.
say that again to the friends and the people in my network that I know and that I see that do support Donald Trump, that I know have used, I won't even say all things, but there's some people I know that had a baby via IVF, have children that have pre-existing conditions that they found when they were born, and they are still voting for someone who says,
I want to get rid of Roe v. Wade and I want to get rid of Obamacare.
And so I'm like, okay, whatever. If this person is like, I have my kid, I don't care about IVF anymore. If that's on the docket, thanks.
Thanks for thinking for the rest of us.
Thanks for thinking for the rest of us. But I'm like, are you so nice? You have a child. The vote you're casting now is directly impacting your life, but also the life of the child.
And their grandchildren.
And the Senate, who are going to be in it, and their grandchildren. So I'm like, what happens if you do have the kid that doesn't follow in mommy and daddy's successful footsteps and doesn't have such a stable job, or wants to be in the gig economy, wants to be the YouTuber or whatever, and they don't have health insurance, or
they get hit by a car and end up having a severe disability that they can no longer work.
But I'm only saying it about the right now, because I'm like, well, what do you think is going to happen? It's like, like you were saying before, I have friends that have children with development disabilities, where it might be pretty tough for them to be able to live on their own when they're an adult. But and I know my friends are thinking about that, the future state of, it's okay, I got it, I'll be taking care of them. But there are things outside of your control, because if Obamacare is no longer, what are you going to do for that? What's the answer? Are you going to look at your kid in the eye and say, well, your dad and I decided to vote against that because we didn't think it was going to be a big deal?
Yep. It's that, and it's also, because we've mentioned Obamacare and we've mentioned Roe v. Wade, but it's also understanding that the Food and Drug Administration, there also needs to be, and the pharmaceutical industry, there needs to be a big accountability shift. And I'm not saying Democrats are doing it right. I don't think anybody's fucking doing it right.
I agree.
But I'll tell you, I don't think anyone that is a billionaire, Donald Trump, I don't think he's more concerned with our lives. I think he's more concerned with anybody that he's got in the pharmaceutical industry making money and capitalism. And all of it's connected. Go back and listen to the Yucca episode. That's the thing where all these autoimmune diseases, everybody I know that keeps getting sick. Yeah. You might hear this is the last thing I'll say. You might hear this episode and hear, well, Morgan had a baby, her hormones went crazy, and she ended up getting an autoimmune disease. And she has a grandmother that had one. It's genetic. Sure. Could totally be it. Maybe that is it. What about the person that's never had a kid? Yeah. That randomly gets a thyroid disease. Maybe it was genetic for them. You can't trace it, but hold. Or maybe it's just the fact that they've now for the past 40 years have had light chemicals eaten every day because it's legal here. We don't ban Skittles. We don't ban these things. So they have light chemicals. They have a little drip of chemicals going into them every day. By their 40th year, it blows up, and now their body freaks out and attacks itself. Now, maybe that's why they have an autoimmune disease. Yeah. My point is it's all connected, and we don't know.
Right. And I think, that's...
All I'm saying is my point is it's all connected, and we don't know. And I want every politician to be held accountable. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I don't think anyone's holding anyone accountable enough.
I agree.
But my point is...
so much money's being taken from these companies.
Right now, Project 2025 moment, I don't see a Trump option for someone like me who's fucking disabled
Right.
to vote for some. If I was rich and white and didn't give a fuck about anybody but myself and was still fucking disabled like this, I don't see Trump being an option for me.
Right. And that's what's so interesting. You know, again, I mean, I think it is just, there's a lot of theories I have. I don't know. Because like you're mentioning, I thought, oh, okay, it's this person is just doing it because it's fiscal. It's like, I like money too.
And I think no, I know what it is. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. It's a dog whistle because they are the type that rather than seeing community, back to the original base of this episode, then rather than seeing community and seeing love in everyone, they allow for people like Donald Trump to
they're
show
selfish.
them the differences, to say it's the see that person over there, run from them. Because if we all band together, if all the poor people, the brown people, the black people, the Hispanics, if we all band together against the mighty, mighty rich people, well, and we weren't worried about the differences of our skin, and we were just thinking about the things that were similar. We were just thinking about the fact that we all have kids that we want to love. No one wants to be physically ill. If we were all thinking of those things and we were all thinking only of commonality, we would never vote for somebody like Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I don't even think, like you were saying about it being like, if we, the marginalized groups, it's just, I think it is this fact, like you were saying with the community, and it being so much easier to think you can go it alone in life.
Yeah.
Again, I'll go back to the African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Those that, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh yeah, my child does have a disability, I don't know, I could also become disabled, like you were saying, it's the one marginalized group we can go in and out of. It's still that inability to see people. It's the inability, you think you have to physically walk in someone's shoes, you have to wait till it happens to you. Just like, not to go back to that, but your child has to be the victim of a school shooting for you to change your mind. You have to be the one that's in a wheelchair for you to care. You have to be the one to lose your job, not be able. All of these things, it goes back to, like you're saying, the loss of community. And not to go too far down that, whatever, we went there, we made the point. But I just do want to highlight kind of, one, I have to thank you for being so vulnerable. Because to me, and I say this often, vulnerability is the true sign of strength. And I've got to say, I'm trying not to get emotional myself, it was very difficult, incredibly hard to see my sister, who I look to in life as an example and someone who teaches me so many things, and someone that I love so much, who is so strong, go through this. And we didn't know what was wrong with you. We were all panicked. And I think the strength that you have, that you are here today feeling as good as you are, wasn't just because the biologic. I want everybody to understand that. Morgan was saying, I would try anything. Yeah, she did the acupuncture and she changed her diet and did all of this. And of course I joke, and we'll be at a restaurant and she asks for gluten-free and I'm like, oh, come on. But I say that jokingly to her, but I think it's a reminder about judgment. You can't look at a person and know what they're going through physically, mentally, all of it. You don't know their story. So think before you speak. But I also say, like, what you're doing today, you sharing this, yeah, sure, you're helping somebody that may have these symptoms, but you're helping so many people that can identify of having a disability, that don't have a voice because they don't have the support. And like you said, I mean, you have an amazing husband and, the best family I've ever seen. But seriously, it's like, my husband Joe has always said, you and your sisters amaze me. Like, the way you communicate and how you communicate to others, your voices are your superpower. That was a lot of why we're here. And this is such a powerful. So I just had to thank you for that, because this is I just don't want everyone to think that Morgan's like, she's better, she's great. Because if you see her out, of course, you're so positive. It's not just that you did these things. You're doing the meditation, you're doing the yoga, you're doing the mindfulness things, you have eliminated stuff out of your life. Like, you've sacrificed a lot, and you've never stopped trying, and you've never stopped doing what's best for you, for Angel. So you can be the mom that can get down on the floor and play. And when you said that earlier about being 25 and looking hard in the mirror and, you know, be kinder to your body, I just have to say, last thing, for those who are listening now, it's, yeah, we can't reverse all the damage maybe we've done to our bodies up until this point, but it's not too late to start trying. And I've said this before to people, like, you know, I'm no longer a practicing Catholic. I do believe in God. Joe and I say all the time, our way of work, to me, one of the most powerful ways of worship to show your love and appreciation for what you have is to physically use your body. We have one body, and take care of it. So I just say that too, because it's been a real lesson for me, and something that I've just really admired your strength, because you are so positive, but you've downplayed it. We can talk about it more in another episode, but I mean, you lost all your hair. And as a woman, especially a Black woman, to get up and stand there in my wedding photos with the majority of your hair falling out, with a smile on your face because you're happy to be there and alive and able to walk down the aisle. It's also made me, in my evaluation of people, I think I judge less, but I also have a lot less time for people's bullshit. So anyway, that's just my side, because I want people to take that away.
No, it's true. It's like, judge less, because sometimes, like, you know, I think of pre all this, and I think of looking at someone and being like, God, why don't they hit the gym more? You know, because we're trained that way, you know, to be like fat shaming and like, and then I'm thinking like, now all I think of is like, oh my God, they probably like, they probably are sick, or maybe it's just their knees hurt, or, you know, all the chemicals in their body. The chemicals maybe in my body made me get psoriatic arthritis. The chemicals in another body can make you, now that we know about with all this Ozempic research, can make you obese. I just don't think of it the same way. And so that you've perfectly reminded me of then the last thing that I'll tell people is, you know, how can you support us? How can you support the disabled? How can you support those around you, or those that you don't even know? Think of others. You know, when you rent a scooter in a city, either in your city or one that you're visiting, don't park it in the middle of a sidewalk.
That is such a good point.
You know, it's like every time I see them now, I never would have thought about it before. Every time I see them now, if I move, Angel will be like, because I'm pushing him in the stroller, Mom, what are you doing? Even though there's no battery in it, because it's not on I'm pushing it out of the way. Because when you know what it's like to not be able to move, and you're using a walker and you're just trying to get around, and in Eastport, our community, where you don't have a sidewalk that if you have a wheelchair you can even use, move the fucking scooter that you rented with your able-bodied ass out of the way.
Well, that is, like you're saying, it's sad to have been in that moment to see it. But in the one at the Annapolis Film Festival, when we talked to Eliza Jane
Oh my
Fowle,
God,
and she was the writer and director of the movie, the short film Chums. And she's a blind woman. And so go back and listen to that to hear her story. But she said how she lived in Sydney, Australia, and then moved into a smaller town. I'm forgetting the name of the town.
Really rural,
Yeah, rural. And she said she moved because it had became so difficult for her as a blind woman to get around the city when they started having
the rental bikes and scooters.
The scooters, the city bike, or not city bike, the scooters that you can, or the bikes,
whatever. They can just drive around.
Because she said she was literally falling over them and she couldn't get around by herself anymore. So there's all these little things you can do, but judge less.
Listen more.
Listen more. Do your research when voting. Understand your vote impacts more than right now. It's literally the future. And if you're looking at your kid and you're making the Instagram post about the condition your child has or the syndrome that your child has, and you're telling that child's story, understand that next chapter of the story, you're already starting to write when you cast your vote. And if you think how terrible it is your child has this condition and you wish you could take it away, you would do anything. Are you so selfish that you think the woman or the man or the person down the street that has a child with the same condition but doesn't have the luxury of the job that you do or the funds that you do or the support that you do shouldn't have the same opportunity in life to live live a healthier version of their life, the best life that they can? It's not okay. Look inward.
Well, and also, because this is where I go now, because I'm always like, extreme. How can I get you to really understand this? Because in that moment, there's still people that are like, yeah, no, I'm not worried because I have money and it's fine. What if you die tomorrow? What if you and your partner are killed in a car accident? Because that shit happens all the time. That's why our wills are written up the way that they are. Where are the kids going after you leave? Believe me, go ahead and try and roll back some of the laws that we have in this country. Your ass is gone. Where's that kid going? How's it going to be taken care of? With what insurance? What disability? A job? A community?
That's a good point, because and someone might, because I'm even in my head trying to answer that.
You think it's guaranteed to have a job in this country? That was not this way. The folks with disabilities had to fight for the opportunity to have a job.
And that's a whole other topic, and they still get paid so much less for doing the same jobs.
And it's a whole other topic, but my point is, you think your money can control everything. It cannot when you are dead.
But especially if the person, I'm just saying, someone might come back with, oh, I have savings, I have life insurance, and we've written it over to grandma and grandpa, and they're taking the kid. Okay. Guess again about the insurance piece. Now the kid doesn't have insurance. So now they're paying for the biologic $1,000 a month.
And you don't have Obamacare.
Or now they need to be in an assisted living
Medicaid.
or
Let's say
a group home.
They could change Medicaid and Medicare.
$8,000 to $10,000.
How many people in this country take advantage of Medicaid and Medicare?
Right.
That shit can be gone.
So again, just saying, like, you think, just like Morgan shared with her story, it's not like she was like, I bet you as soon as I have a kid, I know by the time I'm 40, I'm going to have a disability. Nobody thinks like that, because we would all be depressed. Everybody wants the best. If you want the best, do your research.
Anyway, I think for my own mental health, we're going to end it there. But thank
you for sharing that, because I know it's not easy to talk about it, and it's taken us some time. We've recorded how many 30 episodes at this point?
No, that's a great point.
We've talked about it.
We've talked about this since before we committed to doing a podcast. We were like, well, obviously we talk about your physical and mental health, because of course it's a topic that we need to talk about, but it is so, and that's which I will hammer home again. There's just so much mental to physical disabilities, and your mind and your body are so connected that it has been really, really hard to get to the point to even be able to talk about this. But I knew that talking about it would be therapeutic and a release. And
you knew you were going to be helping somebody.
And I know I'm going to be helping somebody. And I've already, taken calls and all the things, because I don't want anyone else to have to go through this. This is the worst experience of my life.
Yeah.
And no one deserves it.
And I know, like you said, end on that. And I just wanted to end on also one little thing. I know we talked about judgment and don't. I also have to say it. You guys all know cannabis is legal in Maryland, and it's great. Cannabis was also, I personally saw it. And I can talk about that later in another episode, as a support person, seeing Morgan on a painkiller and then seeing you on like the highest level of THC cannabis for your pain. When people want to make comments, especially because you don't drink now. Mm-hmm. And so I get protective of it, because obviously, like, I consume cannabis as well too. And I do believe
you need
cannabis,
it also.
Yeah, cannabis is medicine. It's why it's legal. It wouldn't be, there's no benefits. There's no health benefits of drinking alcohol. I'm not saying don't drink out, whatever, you do you. I'm just saying there are health benefits with cannabis. And so when you want to make comments at a get together, or even outside of it, of like, oh, you're smoking, or smells good over here, or like, oh, I can't be around. Oh, I can't be around. You don't know what that person's going through. Mm-hmm. Also, stop it with the stigmas, but especially with cannabis, because I have also seen people that I know would get relief.
Yeah.
And they
don't have the confidence.
They don't have the confidence.
Yeah.
And it's the stigma, and they have people in their close family that don't agree with it. Mm-hmm. So they can't use that for their pain. So again, just really think, don't judge, but I had to mention that too, because again, I'm protective person.
And we've been cannabis supporters since day one, and now I have a real reason to be on it. So come at me, y'all.
Like, just stop.
Snoop.
Anyway.
See you soon.
Love you all.
Love you all.
Please do share this with somebody that it might help, but also think before you judge. And
and
if you could share it with 2 to 3 people in your life that you think need to hear it for whatever reason.
Do that. And if you're about to flood the comments and my DMs, know that I'm really bad at social media. Thank you for all the support. And if you really want to support, share this episode because I want to help more people. And that's part of why we're doing this pod. So thank you.
Thank you.
Divas.
All right, Divas. Bye, y'all.